Good afternoon. While everyone is finding a seat, I want to remind you that you need to keep your masks up and on and over your mouth and your nose during the entire service, and that we ask that you turn off your cell phones. I know we have a lot of realtors here. Deals are about to be made, but you'll have to wait for the showing for a little while. My name is Cantor Laurel Barr, and I have the very sad honor to be with you today as we join together to remember Val. I know, and I've been informed, that many of you wish to say a few words about your relationship, your memories of Val, and time will not allot for that here. But I want to encourage all of you to join the family tomorrow between the hours of 1 and 3, and again at 5 to 7, where you can share your stories and your memories and bring comfort to those that are mourning. I know that they will appreciate it, and I know that when you mention Val's name, and I know it will go on for many, many, many days for all of you as you contact them, that his soul, his neshama, will continue to be elevated closer and closer to God. We begin with a Psalm 23. The mysteries of life and death are beyond human understanding. We are perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish befall those whom we love. In sorrow, confronted by death, which has taken Val Bendersky from our midst, we feel frailty. Like morning dew, we glisten for an hour or two and disappear into a new day. Ro'eh Yisrael, shepherd of Israel, guide us, your flock, with love and compassion. In our grief and desolation, we grow distant. Do not abandon us, but draw us closer to you, God. Grant solace and comfort to those who mourn. May they sustain each other with the blessing of memory, the memory of the life of their beloved Val. In the valley of the shadow of death, beside the still waters and in the green pastures, you, Adonai, are our shepherd. Be our strength, our shield, be our guide, and be our comfort throughout all of our days. And let us all say amen. There is not one single person in this room or joining us on the live stream that could have ever imagined that we'd be together on this day to mourn and to grieve the loss of Val Bendersky. The shock and sense of disbelief at his sudden passing permeates the very fiber of our souls and the depths of our hearts. Dear Victor and Mara, Nate and Eugen, to his beloved and cherished companion and love of his life, Irina, to Leah and Jared, to Mallory, to his multitude of cousins and relatives, business associates, and dear friends. There are no adequate words with which to try to mitigate the pain or to console the inconsolable, and we find ourselves asking questions that are often left unspoken. Why are the people whom we love taken from us? And why does one person live a long life and another die before his time? Even as we ask, we know that these are questions to which there are no answers. They are problems which were not meant for people to solve. But Judaism has sought to provide those who live the Jewish way of life, as Val did, with a sensitivity to and an appreciation of the good things in life. One of the most effective ways we can show our appreciation is by developing a series of brachot, a series of blessings, which are recited whenever one enjoys a benefit. When one eats a piece of bread or sees a sunset, puts on new clothes, or wakes up to a new day, we thank God. This serves to impress upon us that the blessing that we now enjoy is not something that is ours. Rather, it is an unearned benefit that we must never take for granted, and for which we must be grateful to God, the giver of all. It is this concept that has strengthened us so that we can face adversity without feeling deprived, but acknowledging that our loss was an unearned benefit that we enjoyed for a limited time. Thus, even the case of death. Judaism has prescribed a blessing that we just recited together with the mourners, Baruch Dayan Ha'emet, which mourners are required to recite. Its recitation helps to realize that no one is singled out by fate. I know that mourners find it difficult to say this bracha and to acknowledge that Val has been removed from your lives and that you will no longer be able to enjoy his company, stunned by his death, its sudden reality and its irreversible finality. However, in the spirit of our tradition, we must remind ourselves to look for and to share all the elements of good and kindness and love that Val gave to each and every one of us, how he connected with us, touched our lives, and that now serve as an inspiration for the future. In a moment, Val's family will share some personal words. But before that, I hope you'll indulge me. I'd like to offer you a song that speaks to the connection that Val made to each one of us who knew and loved him. I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe it's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes a sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better, but because I knew you, I have been changed for good. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes a sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? And because I knew you, Val, because we knew you, we have been changed for good. His son Nate will now share some of his memories and his words with all of us.
Everyone, I'm Nate. I'm Val's son. And like you, I am completely shocked by this sudden loss. He leaves behind a huge hole in our hearts, in our community, and in our world. And I will always remember Val as someone who loved life and truly lived it to the fullest that it could be lived. He was always eager for a game of tennis, to give me a tip on my backhand, was always excited to get together with friends and all of you. And he cared deeply about the people whom he loved. His death is painful for me, and I know it's painful for you. But I also think it's an important opportunity for us to reflect. Reflect on what Val taught us, reflect how we can and should remember him, and how we can live life in his honor. The first thing I will say is Val was fun. He was always excited to be with his friends, and growing up I remember my mom and him going to the Russian Tea Room or the Red Square. He especially loved taking his American friends there. Some of you may have fallen victim to that. He loved going to a new restaurant or a play downtown or taking me to a Cavs game or a Browns game. It didn't take me long after I met Val when he and my mom started dating to realize that every person in this town knows Val. And that's because he had a vigor for life. He loved to get together with his friends for dinner or for poker, to watch a game, to talk politics, or just for no reason at all. He loved traveling with his friends, his infamous winter trips to Florida or New Year's in the Dominican. And the lesson for me there is that he somehow both found a way to live in the present, where he was always happy exactly where he was, but also was always looking forward to the next thing and looking forward to the next fun thing to do. And I will take that with me, and I hope that we all can. Everyone knows Val. I mean, look around us. We can't fit everybody in this room. And that's because Val cared deeply about his community. There were many communities that Val had and cared about. The Russian community, the Jewish community, the real estate community, the Cleveland community, and so much more. Everywhere I go in this country, I meet people who tell me stories about Val and how he impacted their lives. After Val's passing, I was completely overwhelmed by hundreds of condolences, people I never even knew that Val knew. And I knew he had an impact, but I never realized how far it went until his passing. I had people tell me that he found their first home in America. He showed up for them when he was needed. And people that only met him once reached out to me, telling me about the impact that he had on their lives. And Val showed care with his actions. He may not have always said exactly the right thing, but he knew what to do. And I knew that he was an active member of the Hebrew Free Loan and many other organizations. But over the last few days since his passing, I learned so much more. There were charities he gave to that I knew he cared about. There were charities he gave to that I did not know he cared about. And there were charities he gave to that I've never even heard of. And notes and receipts that said, "Thank you for your continued support and donation," meaning that he's been doing this for a long time. So when someone asked Val for help, Val would do it. And the last thing I'll share about Val is he was caring. This was a side of him that I think I was very lucky to see. Val cared a lot. And again, the way that Val showed his care was with his actions. He showed up for his friends when they needed him because he cared. He gave back to the community that he was a part of because he cared. And he worked hard in his business and in his life and with compassion for others because he cared. And he showed up for me every time I needed him because he cared. Val taught me a lot, and I would not be who I am without him in my life. He pushed me to work hard, and that failure cannot be from not trying hard enough. He encouraged me to take chances in work and business and in life. And he taught me to bet on others and pushed me to bet on myself. Val taught me how to negotiate. When Val and I would go to Cavs games, we would show up without a ticket. we'd get to that seedy part of town where all the scalpers would hang out, and Val would give me $50 or $100, whatever it was. And he would say, go to a scalper and go get the best seats that you can get. And it didn't start out too good. We started out pretty high up in the bleachers. But over time, the seats got better and better until one day we sat on the floor. And he taught me that no matter how much younger and quicker I was on the tennis court, a well-sliced backhand from Val would beat anything that I could do. And so I'll never forget that no matter what, most importantly, I will remember to show up when asked to. I reflected a lot on what I think Val would want me to say to you all today. And I wish that Val could be here to see this, to see everyone in this room together. I think he'd get a kick out of the fact that his final act is throwing the biggest party of people that he knows in his honor, all to come see him. To have his friends, loved ones, and community all here. So as we mourn Val, I also hope that we can remember what he stood for and live in that honor. To invest in friendship, to build and support our communities, to show care with our actions, and to show up for the people we love. Val's sudden and unexpected death has shown me that we will never know when our time is going to come. So don't wait. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nate. Victor and Mara and the girls are going to come up now and share a few more words.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Oh my God. Uncle Val was a friend to all, literally. Anytime I would be talking to someone, he would randomly get brought up in a conversation, and I would say, oh my gosh, that's my uncle. And they would have no idea that he had a brother. And I'd have to tell them, well, yes, he does have a brother. He happens to be my dad. Uncle Val was so full of life and always knew how to have a good time, which is clearly where I get it from. Or maybe it's just the Russian culture. I don't know. Uncle Val had so much love to give, it was incredible. Even in his last moments, all he cared about was making sure he left his card and number on the car he accidentally hit. My most fond memories of Uncle Val are him picking me up from school when I was in elementary school and him letting me sit in the front seat. I was maybe 7 or 8. He always used to say, don't tell your parents. Well, Uncle Val, the secret is finally coming out. Years and years later. After he would pick me up, he always asked me if I had learned anything, and I would always say no. So as the years went on, even from a few months ago, he asked me, how's school? Have you learned anything yet? And of course, I said no. He was always so supportive and came to as many gymnastics meets as he could, which doing it for 15 years was a lot. He loved us all so much and has touched us all in so many different ways that we will remember forever. Uncle Val, your legacy will live on, and I will love and cherish the moments we shared forever. Now you get to rest with Baba and Dada. I love you forever and always.
I found a poem that I wanted to read. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want, Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on.
All week, I have been thinking about the toast All week, I have been thinking about the toast I wanted to make, thanking Val for the engagement party he was so excited to throw for Leah and Jared and Nate and Eugen. Instead, I'm standing here giving a eulogy. None of this feels real, and the shock is indescribable. My sleepless nights have been filled with childhood memories of Val. He and I were 12 years apart, so our relationship was not a typical sibling relationship. Val came to the U.S. as a 17-year-old kid from the Soviet Union. He had to adapt quickly. I had no clue what was happening, but I will never forget him embarrassing me as he would pick me up from Roland Elementary School in his brand new 1977 Chevy Caprice Classic and talking through a CB radio with the megaphone mounted under the hood announcing he was there to pick me up. That was Val as a teenager. I believe it was his 20th birthday when his friends bought him a ping pong table. I am not sure who was more excited, him or me. Over the years, we played so much ping pong, and he would beat me every damn time. Yet, he was always willing to play another game and most likely beat me again. We were surrounded with Bee Gees posters on every wall as we played, and we would be listening to his 70s vinyl record collection. I know the Eagles and Billy Joel were some of his favorites. And I want my kids to know that it was Uncle Val's fault you had to suffer listening to all that 70s and 80s music on our road trips. As Val became a young adult, he thought it would be a great idea to purchase a gold Z28 Camaro with T-tops and get personalized plates that said Valera. As a 12-year-old kid, I thought it was the best decision he could ever make. I got to cruise around with my older brother in a sports car with the T-tops off, listening to the coolest music. It really did not get much better than that when you're a young kid. As I got older, I started to understand the sacrifice our parents made leaving the Soviet Union. Looking back, Val understood it immediately and ran with it. He never forgot where he came from. He made so many friendships and was known by so many people around the city through his real estate business. The love Val had for everyone around him was second to none. There was never a time I would ask Val to help with the kids and him say no. He may have shown affection in his own Val way, but I always knew he cared, and I always knew he would be there when I needed him most. Val showed us all how precious life is, and if your body is telling you something is off, never second guess yourself and seek medical attention. I love you, brother. May you rest in peace with Mom and Dad and the rest of our family who left us way too soon.
Thank you for sharing some of your stories, and I can't wait to hear more, and I can't wait to hear other stories that you're going to share, as Val was certainly larger than life. I do have a few words that I've also prepared. I'm hoping not to repeat too many things, but I know that he did come here as a very boisterous, fun 17-year-old with a big head of bright red hair. He was enrolled and graduated from Cleveland Heights High School, where he immersed himself in his new language and quickly acclimated himself into the lifestyle of American culture. In fact, he acclimated so well that he soon enjoyed the dating scene at Tri-C and brought home his first girlfriend. And much to the dismay of his parents, she was an American named Debbie. Eva and Simon were not having it, and he was forced to break up with her. Now, Val had big dreams for himself. He was quite intuitive, and he had a great propensity for business, as Nate mentioned. He got his start as an entrance-level employee at Acme Factory, and he worked his way up to manager. His business sense alerted him to the factory's impending move overseas, and he quickly shifted gears and began immersing himself in the real estate business. He was following the advice and the mentorship of Lola Malsmacher. His dear friend and real estate colleague, Sharon Friedman, couldn't sleep last night, and she texted me this wonderful message. She said, Val was a quiet but mighty force in the local Cleveland real estate. When he and Sheila Farkas opened up the VS Realty Group some 23 years ago, they created this brokerage from scratch, and they were looked upon as either very brave or completely crazy. They built it from a two-person operation to what one would refer to as a boutique firm, working with national companies, growing their team to nearly 20 successful agents working together. He was always ready to offer advice on a variety of topics. But most importantly, he gave everyone the gift of his time. When he bumped into you, whether at Davis Bakery or at Heinen's, he was never in too much of a hurry and could give you 10 minutes or 30. We know that Val was outgoing and personable. He was charming, he was funny, and he was incredibly friendly. And as we know, it is fair to say that he knew every Cleveland realtor, broker, title company worker, loan officer, home inspector, and appraiser, and also every employee at Davis Bakery on Chagrin, where he was a daily fixture at the lunch counter. Val was always ready to help with a kind word, a joke, a smile. He was a true mensch, and it is a great loss for the entire real estate community as well. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing that. If you were fortunate enough to know Val, he always made you feel that you and he were very best friends. A meeting with someone he didn't know began with interrogation and bombarding that person with questions until ultimately he discovered that they were either A, related to him, B, related to a friend or someone he knew, C, originally from Cleveland, D, Jewish, E, and the best of all, they were Russian. His favorite words to utter were, "Oh, I know them." Val was a well-informed and voracious reader and somewhat opinionated, especially when it came to current events and politics. He bet on every election and always for the Democrat. He enjoyed a healthy, respectable debate on any topic, but often politics, and especially when the others held a strong opposing view. Ryan, you mentioned to me yesterday that Val talked with you about the political scene, and he explained how opposing political parties could, in fact, work together to get things done. And that's truly a life lesson for us all. Val loved traveling. As you know, he loved tennis, he loved Vegas, and he loved winning at gambling. He loved all styles of music, from Russian classics to Pink Floyd and jazz, and anything in between. As Victor mentioned, he loved that Camaro. It was adorned with those vanity plates, which I think is hilarious because I never knew his name was Valera. He sat in it, he drove around in it, and he blared and blasted classic rock music from it, often through the streets. He was a master chess player, an accordionist, and a 5-cent poker player. He loved the Cavs, and he even loved the Browns, and he cheered them on both in winning and losing seasons. But more than anything, Val loved his family and his closest friends, who were just like family to him. Nate, he was a loving father and your mentor. As you mentioned, sometimes tough on you, but always with the intent to open your eyes and explore the world. You were right. He pushed you to succeed. He took great pride in your wonderful grades, but he was even more concerned about the teacher's notes, about your attitude and your work ethic. You gained the tools to become a successful entrepreneur yourself, and he loved to send you random emails and articles just because you were always on his mind. He was overjoyed about your upcoming wedding to Eugen and was so looking forward to celebrating with you and your families. Irina, you were truly the love of his life, though it did take him 2 tries to finally get it right. From your first meeting and courtship at Tri-C almost 40 years ago to your subsequent reunion through mutual friends a little over 7 years ago, you made the ideal couple. He was so devoted to you. He took care of you and was concerned for your welfare, and he wanted only to share life's wondrous adventures with you, to travel the world together and grow old together. His heart was full, and his love was overflowing when you were together. And Victor, as you mentioned, he was your cool and sometimes elusive big brother. The age difference between you often made it seem more like he was your father and not a brother, but you could confide in him, and he always covered and looked out for you when mischief arose. Your closeness to one another grew over these last years as your parents' health declined and you forged a stronger bond together as you cared for your parents together. And he adored Mara and the girls, and he helped indoctrinate Mara into the Russian way of life. Mara, when you recently celebrated your big 50th birthday without a party, Val was very angry. You said, but there are too many parties coming up with all the weddings and the celebrations, but he said there is no such thing as too many parties. He squeezed the most he could out of every single day of his short 62 years of life. Even his longtime friend, Bart Bookatz, remarked that Val would have been thrilled to know that this was the very first funeral to be held in this newly renovated memorial chapel. Val was giving, as you know, to many causes. He was on the board and he was the president of the Hebrew Free Loan Society, which the family has directed donations to be made there. He gave generously, choosing to sponsor Russian students and make his financial donations without need of public recognition or fanfare. And as we've said repeatedly today, Val knew and loved everyone, and he was so loved in return. Even on his last day, in his hospital bed surrounded by family and police security because so many people showed up, his family remarked that if he could have spoken, he would have said that he knew those cops and that he probably sold them their houses. And on this sad day, while we know that we do not have a choice as when we are born and when we will die, we do have a choice in the way that we live our life, the attitude that we bring to our years and service on earth, the way we relate to those closest to us and how we serve our fellow human beings. Though we would have liked to have Val with us for many more years, we are grateful that he has left us with a rich store of memories to treasure and to hold on to as we face life without him. May Val's life and deeds continue to shape and to influence and guide all of us, his family, his friends, his incredible community, as we all go forward. Let him rest now in peace, lech l'shalom, and we say amen. Adonai natan ve'Adonai lakach. Yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God has given. God gave us Val Bendersky. Blessed be the name of God. Before we rise for the final prayer, El Malei Rachamim, I want to remind everyone that you are invited to join this family tomorrow at Irina's home at 27719 South Woodland in Pepper Pike. It is a little difficult to park on South Woodland, but I understand that the Brainerd roads, which are closed off for those of you who live in that, I think it's called Sterling. You're realtors, you know what I'm talking about. You can park there and walk over to the house on South Woodland. Again, it's tomorrow, Friday, 1 to 3, and again, 5 to 7 p.m. Please join the family, and we will have a brief memorial service at 1:30 in the afternoon. We ask all of you to please rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי שכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת היקר שלנו שלח לעולמו. בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Val Bendersky, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us all say amen. You may be seated one more moment. The burial service will continue at Mount Sinai Cemetery.